Welcome to Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view, from the Casablanca studio in Golden, Colorado. Hosted by Art Carlson. At 4'6", liberals fear him, and conservatives love him. He's definitely a giant among men. Now here's your host, Art Carlson.
Yeah, welcome to another episode of Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view. We've got a great show today. We're going to talk about the Dante Wright shooting, the unfortunate accident. This was terrible all the way around. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about this woman down in New Orleans who somehow got $1.2 million deposited into her Charles Schwab account, and then she withdrew that money right away. She's been arrested for theft. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about court packing. Yes, Congress has gone forward into looking into the feasibility of adding 4 more judges to the Supreme Court. And then we'll talk about, if we have time, we'll talk about VP Kamala Harris, how she laughs at just about everything, which is weird. So let's get this show going and bring on my two co-hosts. Let's first bring up my first co-host, the adoring, the manuring, the fabulous man from Muskogee, Oklahoma, Lloyd Mendenhall.
Hey, Art. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And now, all the way from Syracuse, New York, the Orangeman of New York, let's welcome Mike Roach.
Hey.
All right. Welcome, Mike.
How you doing,
Hey,
guys?
Mike.
Good to see you.
Doing good.
That's good.
Art, didn't you get the memo? Orange shirts today.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have the official Arts Place shirt.
All right. Well, okay.
I had these made years ago when this show was originally an internet radio show where I did 3 hours solo.
Wow.
Well, that was.
I thought I liked to listen to myself talk a lot.
Kind of like last week, Art. You kind of you kind of got left out to dry by both of us, I think. In the sense.
Yeah. Well, last week Judy had she had another one last night too. So I did get a little sleep today, and I told Judy I didn't care if I didn't get any sleep at all. I wasn't leaving Art hanging this time. And then you show up, Mike. Yeah,
Right.
All right. That's all right.
Well, I showed up last week, but I only showed up for a few minutes because I had someone here cleaning in the afternoon, and then a few minutes went by, and then a buddy of mine stopped over who I hadn't seen in about a month. So I was like, I thanked Art for the toffee, which I did receive, and but then I had to go. And I want to say about that toffee, Art, when you've been giving that away and people have been raving about it, I thought, well, then they're just being magnanimous, and that stuff really is crazy good. And the only downside, it packs into your teeth a little bit. You got to lick it out. But it's good.
Yep.
It originally started out in Grand Junction, Colorado, which is where I live. In high school, that's where I graduated high school. I moved there when I was in 9th grade. And man, I started getting, we found out we used to actually go downtown, and they have a big glass front window. You stand there, watch the machine as it did this stuff and twisted it, and watch big kettles. You'd see them dump out the chocolate and spread it on the on the a stainless steel table, and then they'd take this big giant copper bucket and just spread the center section, the actual toffee part, spread it out, and then they'd let it cool just a little bit, throw some more chocolate on it, and then toss in the nuts. And oh my God, you just sit there and you could smell it every time they're making a batch when you're down in that area. So I probably, after we moved to Grand Junction, I probably put on about 25 pounds just eating that crap. I love it. And
Yeah.
Judy, on special occasions when I've been a really good boy, she'll order me some at Christmas time. So I haven't been good for a long time because she hasn't ordered me any. But it's not cheap. But man, it is worth it. It is good stuff.
Yeah. I hope things are okay out there.
I was very lucky to
Lloyd.
meet Rick Enstrom, and that's how I was able to start all this. And
Art, you really need to make up a commercial, sort of like, because they're sort of your sponsor.
Yeah.
On both your channels, they are your sponsor. You give away the product all the time, and I know it comes from them. So you need to put together a small Enstrom's chocolate commercial. There's a banner or something to flash up, and so
that's a good idea.
Yeah, because you've been giving that stuff away, at least on Artco Drone Solution, and we do talk about it here on Art's Place every so often. So I would definitely.
Good idea. I'm going to be having dinner with Rick and Linda Enstrom this evening, so I'll be able to.
Well, you tell them this was my idea.
Okay.
If they got an extra package of chocolate, they can send it my way. 609 North Utah Street, Muskogee, Oklahoma 74403.
Or if they want to ship it to the East Coast,
wife,
they can do that too.
From Grand Junction. She went to Fruita High School.
Yeah. That was one of the time. It was one of the smaller schools. I don't know. I haven't been to Grand Junction since 85.
Wow.
I haven't been to Colorado since like 1990. So
wow.
Yeah,
I haven't.
Some people's exes live in Texas. My exes live in Colorado, but I couldn't write a song about it. So
sounds like you got the beginning of a song there, Lloyd.
Yeah, I do. yeah. Heartaches by the Number. I think they've already written that song.
Well, let's say hello to the folks in the chat. We've got Steve Carpenter, SC Aerials, Chris Wedgeworth, and Mike, GFO Drones and Tech Guy, and Brad Pear. Welcome to the show. Welcome. All right, let's get this started. Do you guys know about Dante Wright? He was the young man that was accidentally shot and killed in Brooklyn or Brookline?
Brooklyn Heights, I think it is.
Brooklyn Heights, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. And, this was a big screw up all the way around. I mean, everybody was at fault. The cop, mistaking her taser for a real gun.
That's not as far-fetched as we had the same thing happen in Tulsa. And the guy ended up in jail for it. Now, the difference was this was it a young lady that was a police officer?
Yeah, she'd been a member of the department for 26 years.
Okay, so she wasn't all that young, but she was still probably in her 40s, and the guy, this was with the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office, and in Oklahoma, you can help the sheriff's department out by buying equipment and, dash cams and body cams and stuff like that. We do a lot of that stuff here. And this particular officer actually had donated body cams to this Tulsa County Sheriff's Department. And as a result, they gave him a reserve officer rating. we have a lot of reserve officers because some of our counties are just huge. And he was given a reserve officer's rating and was called out on a domestic or some situation. Went to tase the guy, reached down, grabbed the wrong weapon, and shot him, and killed him. The problem is the guy was 70 years old. He shouldn't have been out in the field in the first place. It ended the career of the Tulsa County Sheriff, the Deputy Sheriff. They completely had to revamp the whole system because they no longer allow people who are donors to carry they can work in the office, but they can't be active field.
Right.
Now, and mind you, in Oklahoma, you have to go through a certification program in order to get that. As a reserve, it's less than what it is as a full-time officer. So this isn't the first time this happened. We had the same thing happen, like I said, here in Oklahoma. So, and the guy shouldn't have ran. In both cases, the guy shouldn't have ran.
Yeah, that's true. And this guy knew he had a warrant out for him. And what prompted the pullover was the air freshener hanging from his rearview mirror. That's what prompted the stop.
Yeah,
I know. It just
traffic stops. You hear the phrase routine traffic stops so much, and every traffic stop, there are routine traffic stops. Obviously, we've all been pulled over for a ticket or whatever, and but unfortunately, so many traffic stops go bad, and this is one where the ideal thing would when they found out he had warrants, and hopefully they would have got him cuffed and put away, but. Then it seems like, if I remember looking at that tape, as soon as he was aware they knew he had warrants, he wanted to take off. And as soon as there was an opening, he got in there. The two guys were trying to pull him out of the car. In the meanwhile, pulls out what she thought was her taser. I believe thought was her taser. And she could have held off and maybe they would have got him out of there. Or maybe he would have had a gun under the front seat and shot the cops. So who knows? Either way, it shouldn't have happened. It was a bad mistake. Obviously heads have already rolled. And she's been charged, and people have had to resign and stuff. And sadly, the guy's dead. He was no choir boy, but he shouldn't be dead. But it's a bad situation, but if he'd have cooperated, there'd be no problem. But this is one where, unfortunately, it's going to be used as, as a flashpoint, which it already has now. Every night since, there's been a buildup more and more in that city for the Antifa mob has now showed up, and with
Maxine Waters is up there fanning the flames.
Right. So, and
representative from California, what the hell is she doing up there?
Yeah, like GFO drone tech guy says, you don't know until you're in that situation, and the adrenaline runs high. She followed procedure as far as that went, but and we can all sit down and armchair quarterback this thing, but having been, in the military and worked with the military police and stuff like that when I was in the service, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's in their mind. I mean, police officers are human beings, and they're not mind readers. And like you said, Mike, easily could have been a gun.
Yeah, there could have been a gun.
We had a situation where there were two cops that another female officer, she ended up pulling a gun. She ended up shooting a guy because she saw he was reaching for a gun. She knew, she was apparently aware. She come around the backside and was telling him, put his hands up, do, comply, and ended up shooting and killing the guy. Well, they naturally, this was just as all this stuff was starting to happen, and they put her on trial. She was found not guilty of manslaughter, and she was put back, because we had a DA at the time that was trying to make points with the the Social Democrats and stuff, and she ended up winning the whole case and ended up being put back in her position. It was a desk position, but
Right.
she was still put back on the force, and she finally stepped down and went to work and is doing exemplary with another agency in the state of Oklahoma, with a different county. But you don't know until you're in that situation, and most of us have never been in that situation.
Right.
And I, been in the military, I've kind of been under the gun, as they say, and you don't. And of course, my son being a police officer, I hear a little bit about what he goes through and see the stress that he goes through all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and plus these cops nowadays are under far more pressure than they were 20 years
True.
ago.
Right.
Not
And the
only
sad
that,
thing is-
did you hear what happened to the city manager? Right after the
No.
shooting, he came out and had a press conference, and they asked him if the officer was going to be fired or charged with filed a charge against her. And he said, "Hey, this thing is still under investigation, and we're going to follow due process," which is correct. And then he gets
Exactly.
fired because he said that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Because
the guy
these
his goose was cooked from the minute that happened.
That's
So there was-
insane. To get fired for saying we're going to let due process take its course is insane.
and-
That's where we are.
constitutionally, that's what should be happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They should,
That's
they're innocent until proven guilty. Nobody seems to remember that, especially these spineless politicians, both on the left and the right. We've got so many weak-spined politicians on the right now that that's why they're able to walk all over like this. They're
Mhm.
not. Let a Republican say do something and go to a protest and, oh my God, it's we're trying to take over the world or something. We're violating the Constitution. The same crap they do, we can't, and
Right.
it's our own fault for not standing up. And we as the voters for not standing up and getting rid of these people. We got a small percentage of people that are controlling the agenda and controlling the conversations.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
true.
And people like Maxine Waters are just, I can't believe she's one of 100 senators, in our Senate. It's like she has been trouble for so long.
435.
The way she acts is so unprofessional. And for her to be fanning the flames, causing harm to all kinds of people, and she's been doing this for years now. All she is a rabble rouser. And it's like, and she seems to thrive on that kind of thing. She lives for this stuff.
Yeah, remember what she did when Trump was president? She called out people to harass everybody in his administration.
Oh yeah,
Whether they're at a restaurant, a gas station, any public place, go harass them. I'm like going,
And it
"Come on."
happened.
Yeah. And it's getting to a point where it's not only those people, but anybody who's right of center, from city councilmen to mayors to county commissioners. I mean, they're getting hounded by leftists. It's just getting crazy.
We have allowed this. We have allowed this to go on way too long. And it's time for us to we've got to insist that our representatives actually represent us. I mean, if she was a Republican, they'd have censure slapped against her so fast they make their head spin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unacceptable. I don't think it's acceptable at all that they should be allowed to do that.
Right? She actually was calling for, in the beginning of the Trump administration,
Yeah.
literally calling for violence against administration members and causing it to happen, with Sarah Sanders being chased out of restaurants and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
No
Yeah.
problem. Nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
No, not a word.
Yeah. Well, it's like with the house, that's run by, what, 5 or 6 women run the house. Now, mind you, at my house, only one woman runs it, but
Mm-hmm.
and but I'm married. I took that on. I didn't vote. I didn't vote for her to represent everybody. I voted for her as my wife to represent me, and she tells me what I can say and what I can't say. But it's okay. But these
Lloyd, you entered into a mutual dictatorship, not a
yeah, it was a mutual dictatorship.
republic.
Yeah. And it's a private dictatorship. It doesn't affect anybody's policies or whether they're going to get fed this week or blah blah blah. But
That's true. That's like the old saying: if a man says something in a forest, is he still wrong?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only 2 words of a successful marriage that ever count is yes, dear.
Yes, true. Mm-hmm.
And another thing about this whole thing with what happened, the young guy's dead, and this girl who did the shooting, this woman, they're gonna throw the book at her because they kind of have to, if she is indeed found guilty, and either way, we knew something was going to happen this spring. The weather's warming up now in all these cities, and
Mm-hmm.
all it takes is a flashpoint. And sooner or later, just inevitably, there's going to be some violence. There's going to be a police shooting. Whether it's right or wrong really doesn't matter anymore. And now, sure enough, we've got the shenanigans starting up all over the country again, and it's still April, and I fear that this summer, since so much is still closed in so many states, it's going to be just a repeat of last summer.
Oh yeah.
And I think part of it is this: now we're in this 24/7 media. I mean, there's no escaping this, and that's why we're hearing more and more about shootings like this, because everything is instantaneous. Once it happens, boom, it's out there on either social media or it's on the news.
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
need that.
That's why it
And-
seems like wow, we never had this when we were young. It was, well, that's because we didn't have the media that we do right now. We did. I mean, we probably had just as many as in percentages of shootings like this as we did back then. But back then, the population was much smaller, and I think values have changed over the years as well. That
Well,
caused this
that's-
to spiral.
that's really the big thing. It's like our media or our journalists, and I use that term very loosely, are no longer reporting the news, they're making it. And that's the other part of the equation is we've got everybody's a news reporter. I mean,
Mhm.
40 years ago, would you either one of you guys thought we'd be sitting here on a talk show type political analyst show like this being broadcast to, well, at least 17 people or maybe 10 people, but still, it could be watched by millions, you know. And none of us are, you know, I don't know about you, Mike, and I know I don't have a degree in journalism.
No.
And Art, yeah, well, you're a former stand-up comedian, which qualifies you to be a great journalist nowadays because most of these journalists are jokes.
Right.
Yep, that's true.
So you're more than qualified over Mike and I, you know.
It's crazy. It's like, I don't know if you guys have seen any of this, these expose videos that Project Veritas has done about CNN this week. I mean, and all of us has known this. It's just confirmation that they have an agenda set. And when it came, you know, with the COVID thing, it was push the COVID, push the fear. And the plan after that is whenever that dies down to go into climate change. And, you know, so much of it is, you know, it's not news reporting. It's just pushing an agenda. I mean,
it's strictly propaganda. Yeah, it's strictly propaganda. I mean, it's, I have a lot of authors that I read that some of them I know, and some of the stuff they've been predicting, you know, in their stories, you know, they're fictional stories, but they hit so close to home. And some of these stories were written like in 2005, 2006. And yet this stuff is going on in 2021. And it's just, you know, it's like, is this what they learned in college? They knew what was going to happen. So they wrote fictional stories about how it was going to be in the future. And here it is now. We're living that future, you know. Was it called Wag the Dog? Is that the term? You know, you know,
during the Clinton years, I think that.
Wag the Dog. Because
remember the prediction of I think it was back in the 80s. The prediction of super predators were going to be starting to come out and stuff, and they were, I think, off by a couple of decades. But we're at a point now where we've got, you know, predators out there that have no qualms with you know, violence over a nickel, shooting each other or, you know, whatever. And you know, and also these organized groups like Antifa and BLM, they're incredibly organized and funded. You know what I mean? It's like you know, they're not some ragtag group of college kids who got riled up and went out and decided to cause some trouble. They're very organized. They travel, they communicate, they train in their tactics and stuff. And it's a pretty frightening situation we're at right now. And you know, the level of violence. I'm not even 60 years old, and the societal changes that I've seen in my life just from the 1980s when I was in my 20s. From now, it's two different worlds.
Yeah, when you notice the T-shirts that those people were wearing down at the border saying Biden, let us in. Who made those T-shirts?
Yeah,
somebody,
right?
You know, and you know, we can always predict. We can all trace that back to MoveOn.org and George Soros. You know, leftists that are, you know, they're printing up these T-shirts and they're handing them out to the folks down at the border. They probably can't. Number one, they probably can't even read. Number two, I bet you 90% or more don't even speak English and have no idea what this says.
Yeah. They were given a free shirt as clothing. They took it, you know. And
they're saying, "Oh, get over here by the fence so the reporters could see."
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the cartels themselves who
that
made
too.
those shirts up.
Mm-hmm.
And they made them up using the logo of the Biden when he was running for president, the same logo same
Mhm.
font
Right.
as the campaign.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Knowing how that would look on TV, and to us, we obviously see for what it is, but it's like you know, it's I don't know, it's just it's so organized. It's done by not only the cartels and the individuals that want to get in, but also people like Catholic Charities and places like that want to have these people come in, and there are so many domestic groups that want this extra population to come in for demographic reasons, for political reasons, and I don't know. It's it's just nuts what's going on down there. And
Yeah.
for Kamala Harris, so-called being in charge of the border, boy, talk about dereliction of duty. Where the heck is she? You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yep.
you mentioned something. You mentioned Catholic Charities, and that reminds me, we have some very fine people that live across the street from us. Matter of fact, they fixed us something for Easter that they cooked outside, and it was some chicken and some thin cut steak. It was, they're Mexican, and no, they're not Mexican. They're Americans. They're citizens. They came here the right way. One of their boys decided I don't know, was in love with a girl he grew up down there, and he went back just short of, 6 months before his 10 years, to where he would have all the process, and he could become a citizen then. He went back. Took him another 10 years to get back, and one of the organizations they used was Catholic Charities. Now, they were trying to come back legal. Now,
Right.
I heard the other side of the story. They were trying to come back legal, and he did make it back. He's come back. He came back legally. He's now a U.S. citizen. The whole family is, and uh, well, the youngest girl, she was born here. So, but anyways,
Right.
they're hardworking people and some of the best neighbors I've got. You know, but Catholic Charities just took their money, but never helped, and they're members of the Catholic Church here. And this, but Diego would come over and talk to me, and he would be so frustrated with the way Catholic Charities treated them. They wanted to do it legally,
Mhm.
Right.
but see, they wouldn't fit their demographic because we're helping the poor downtrodden illegals. These people were legal. They did it the
Right.
right way, and these organizations have been taken over by you know the socialists so bad. Uh, St. John Paul would be rolling over. It probably is rolling over in his grave over what's happened to the Catholic Church.
Right.
He fought socialism, he fought communism, and now we've got a pope that is a socialist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Now I was brought up Catholic. I have a lot of respect for the
yeah,
traditions
well,
of the Catholic Church, but Pope John Paul, like I said, he fought Nazism and communism,
and
Right.
and
and communism, yeah,
and then now we have a pope who comes at least from a communist point of, or a socialist point of view, a
yeah,
classic South American socialist
socialist,
point of
yeah,
view.
yeah,
And he's
yeah.
he's
Well,
a Jesuit, and they're pretty much left wing anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, Judy and I have both converted to Catholicism, but since John Paul has passed away, because we were part of the big conversion that was going on towards the end of his ministry, there was a big influx. He
Mhm.
brought a lot of people into the Catholic Church back in the 90s. 90,
Mhm.
let's see, when we joined, 98, 97, something like that. And I've since left that because, we're no longer participating because I just can't agree with this. I wasn't too Benedict. I wasn't real fond of him because I didn't like him as a cardinal, Ratzinger. But I didn't agree with him. I thought he was a little, you know, John Paul was compassionate, whereas Ratzinger was hardline. And then
Mhm.
he stepped down, and we got my mind just went blank.
The new guy?
Yeah, the new guy. Yeah, then we got the new guy. I can't remember his name now.
Yeah,
Me neither.
that would be
That other
Francis.
feller,
Yeah,
Francis. That's
the
right.
Francis.
Yeah.
talking mule.
Which is kind of embarrassing because Francis was my grandfather's first name. I should have remembered that.
But
Yeah, and if you watch Blue Bloods, that's you know, the patriarch of the family. That's his first name is Francis, and he goes by Frank.
Yeah.
Frank Reagan.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so yeah, let's go on to our next subject. How about this woman down in Louisiana that got $1.2 million deposited into her Charles Schwab account, and we'll show you her photo. Oh boy, doesn't she look lovely? Yeah. Now she's been arrested for theft because after Charles Schwab found out about the mistake, they tried to get their money back. Well, as soon as she realized that this money was deposited into her account, she pulled it out of the account and went on a spending spree where she bought a house and a car. However, Charles Schwab, they were able to recover 75% of the money. So,
do you know any more details about that? Like, what was the mistake? Did somebody just hit a wrong button?
It was a software update, and there was a glitch in the software that mistakenly deposited this money into her account. I mean, if that were to happen to me, I would just say, whoa, you know, I think there's a mistake here. Let me wait a while, see if they contact me, and then give them, because just how
I would have been contacted if, like with my.
And they've been trying to contact her for quite a while, and she ignored, you know, their texts or calls and letters.
Yeah,
right.
I would have actually picked up the phone and called the bank, say, "Hey, did we really do that well on our investments this month, or?"
Yeah, did we buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you guys notice
anyone
it, but
sees that show up in their account, they know it's a mistake of some kind, and they know, you know, obviously she just decided, I'm greedy and I'm gonna go spend the money, and you know, whatever. No sense of responsibility about it.
And there again, you mentioned earlier that our ethics, morals, our character, our society has changed to where, you know, is anybody surprised? I mean, you think about it. There's so many people that would take the money. You know, I have to, like, my son and daughter-in-law, when the first COVID check came out, you know, the relief check came out, they wouldn't touch it. You know, they had $2,000 sitting there, and they refused to touch it because they misunderstood and thought you know, all that was a tax return from next year. In other words, any money they'd have to come back was given to them early. You know, so they wouldn't touch it, thinking that they were going to have to pay it back. And I had to, you know, I made sure I researched it, I looked it all up, and then I sent him all the information. I called him. I said, "Son, that's your money. You know, yeah, you may have to pay some tax on it next year, but you're not going to have to pay the whole $2,000 back." And so finally he understood that, but, you know, and that's, of course, he's a police officer, but, you know, his wife, she didn't want anything to do with it either, because they just thought it was a pre-return, you know, some income tax credit return that they were given early to help relieve the, you know, There's a lot of people that misunderstood that first, but then this person 1.2 million, and they're out running around trying to spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's character, I'm telling you.
And she's a 911 dispatcher. And her name is Keelan Spadoni. 33.
Well, there you go, right there.
She's been arrested on charges of theft, value over $25,000.
That's
Must be
crazy.
from Tuscany or somewhere, because she got that really dark olive complexion, I noticed.
Yeah.
But the thing is, how can anybody think that that's not going to come back to haunt them? Even if you're a scumbag, obviously a scumbag is going to go out there and spend the money because like a jerk. But it's like, it's going to come back and bite you, no matter what. The mistake's going to get found. You said they tried to contact her the whole time, and she just wasn't responding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's the way
I found out about this on Steve Leto. I don't know if you follow him on YouTube. He's a lawyer out of Michigan.
Yeah, lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of these headlines catch my eye. I don't agree with him on everything,
Right.
because I don't know how you guys feel about asset forfeiture, but hey, if you're walking around with I don't know, $100,000, number one, that's stupid. Number two, there's so many other ways to make a purchase without having a big sum of cash on you that are much safer, because number one, you could have it confiscated by the cops, and the cops are going to assume, well, you're either a mule or you're a drug dealer that's laundering money. And what would you think if you were a cop and you ran across someone with a huge wad of money? You'd be thinking, wow, this doesn't look right,
Right.
And so,
in terms of that, unless they could prove some kind of crime, I don't see where they would have any reason to forfeit it. It's weird for anyone and stupid for anyone to carry that amount of cash. But unless you're committing a crime, they have no right to it.
I'll use myself as a bit of an example here. I'm old school, obviously, because that's why I don't trust Bitcoin. But anyways, we've had that discussion before, Art. But I'm on a fixed income. I have so much money a month. All of my bills get paid first. As soon as that check's deposited, I start either if I don't have, and I say check, as soon as the money is deposited electronically in my account. I'm not that old school. But as soon as that money is put in there, I go through my checks. I list all of what my bills are going to be. I have a spreadsheet. I can change the numbers. At the bottom of that, this is how much my income is. This is how much my bills are. This is how much money is left over, divided by X amount of weeks. Usually on average is 4. It's 4.5 weeks is the most you go. I don't think I've ever done a full 5 weeks in a month, but 4.5 weeks. So I divide that evenly, and I have a set amount that I take out to pay for our, it's our weekly allowance. I put it in weekly envelopes. Whatever's left after that comes out, goes into another. He has a money, something to hold money in, and money goes in there. And as we save money, if I have any at the end of the week, it's called a budget, Steve. But if I have any money left over at the end of the week, that money comes out of my wallet or out of Judy's purse, and goes into that envelope. Okay, so we've managed to save quite a bit. One, the bank's not paying me enough interest. You know, they're getting their what's the prime lending rate, less than 1%.
Yeah.
So they can
Yeah.
borrow money and lend money, and they're getting it less than 1%. They're not going to pay me more than 1% on that money. And why should I let them use my money to loan to other people that may forfeit on their loan anyway? So my money, if I want to loan it, I'll loan it. If I don't, it's for mine. So I might have, not obviously not 100,000, but I may have, I might have, depending on how things go or whether I've blown my money, I may have money sitting there that is, if I get pulled over, say, oh, okay, you're drunk, yeah. And sometimes there's a lot of ones left over. I just tell people, well, that's the money I earned from stripping down at the nursing home. It's pole dancing down there. But where they stuff all them old lady stuff ones of my G strings, but
Well, that's because their vision is pretty bad.
yeah, it is. Yeah. But I could say, yeah, I would, let's see. Yeah, paying 0.25% unless you have a lot in one account. Well, and besides, I've found out that if I leave it in the bank, I spend it. If I take it out and hide it in our floor safe, I don't spend it.
Or this is what you could do, Lloyd. Go down to AutoZone. You buy a bunch of, I don't know, car parts. And
right.
Then you put it in your garage. And, like AutoZone, they give you, 60 days or 6 months. And then before the 6 months, you turn it in and you got your money back.
That's true. Invest in real property.
Right.
There you go. And speaking of, here's my tip jar if you want to deposit a buck or two or several, or you could put it
buy you
in
a cup
that.
of coffee. Buying a person a cup of coffee is like $5 for one of them fancy coffees now.
Yeah, over at Starbucks, I won't even go there anymore. Yeah.
The only time I ever get
Starbucks in several years now.
We get those bottles of the Frappuccino, Starbucks Frappuccino.
Oh, I love Frappuccino.
Okay, yeah. I'll pick one of those up, a couple of bottles of those up at the store.
There you go.
If I'm at the VA hospital, they have a Starbucks there, and I'll get me a mocha latte or whatever it is.
Well, they have them at McDonald's too. And
McDonald's coffee always tastes burnt. Well, I get it. The VA hospital, they kind of set the prices at a cheap rate, so it's not that expensive. I can get the grande mocha latte with everything for like $3.50.
I like that. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, or $1.2 million. Yeah. You got an extra $1.2 million. Remember to hit Art's tip jar, and he will split it equally amongst the three of us. I'm sure he'll share.
That's funny about that. Coffee. It's like the best coffee to me is just going to a diner and getting a cup of coffee. Like this fancy stuff. I never got into it. Just never was my style. I have a brother who he's always broke constantly. Claiming to not have a nickel, like wanting $5 for gas. Yet he's always got a Starbucks in his hand, and it's kind of hard to feel too bad for someone who's that broke that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with me, I'm only up at the VA hospital about maybe 3 times a year. Once to get my eye examined, once to have my yearly checkup with the doctor, and for dental work. And I don't buy one every time. Sometimes I just sometimes I just don't have money in my wallet, and I thought, I'm not going to take an extra $5 up, $4 or $5 just so I can buy me a Starbucks.
Yeah,
I've got one of them single cup coffee makers with the reusable, with the plastic reusable filter and the little paper inserts. $8 to $10 for a big thing of coffee. and $5 for 100 of those filters, and I can make coffee for 6 months with that. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't waste any because I don't have to dump out a half a pot of coffee. Because I let it sit there and get burned. So always a fresh cup.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I set it up where it makes 3 cups, and that only lasts a couple cups for me. And I'll just start it up in the morning, and if there's a cup and a half left, I just kind of put in the thing, let it recycle, and by the time I'm done screwing around in my office here and go have breakfast, it's nice and hot, and put my creamer and a little sugar in there, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a tea
And
guy.
thus is the food portion of the show today.
Yeah.
Uh,
So let's talk about our. I guess we have a few minutes to talk about court packing. So this week, Congress has already started the ball rolling on looking into adding a few judges to the Supreme Court. And so, I mean, we already did that with Roosevelt when he tried to do that during the Depression, and that didn't work out for him. And so they're talking. Well, here they're talking about number one, court packing. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. Here in Colorado, the idiots decided to, let's do away with the Electoral College, so we're part of a compact right now. But that'll probably get overthrown out because in our own Constitution it says we can't do that.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a bonehead idea, as somebody once said. It's like the left is so mad that Trump got 3 picks for the Supreme Court, and the thing is, they just happened to line up that way. It wasn't about packing the court or whatever, and he didn't pick anybody to the extreme in any direction. He just went right down the middle, constitutional people and they're not predictable. None of these judges have really all been all that predictable. Look at Roberts.
Roberts,
be conservative.
He was a big and Garland, even Garland, who it was one of Trump's earlier picks. He's kind of squishy as well, but not as bad as Roberts. Roberts, now that he's the Chief Justice, his opinion is, well, we don't want to touch anything that would shine the light of partisanship on the court.
I never agreed that Roberts should have been the Chief Justice. I thought that was the dumbest idea. Roberts was appointed under
George W. Bush.
Yeah, George W. Okay.
Well,
there's a couple things George W. did.
Harriet Myers was even worse. She was even more squishier. So everybody thought, so he's going to throw out Obamacare. And then, boy, did he disappoint us. Yeah.
Well, first off, I don't think Roberts should have been appointed the Chief Justice. He, to me, the Chief Justice should be probably the senior most in line with the party that's in office. Not the new guy.
In power, not in office.
Yeah, in power. That's in power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because Roberts was the new kid on the block at that point.
Yeah, he was.
All of a sudden, he's Chief Justice.
Yeah, that's because that's what he was nominated. That's what W chose to do. Just like he hired Dick Cheney to help pick out his VP, and at the end of it, all this stuff that Dick Cheney goes through, he says, "Oh well, I guess I'm best suited for the job, so I'll pick myself." Like, really? You know,
Yeah.
some old fart that dawdling along, and the only thing he's good at is shooting the only conservative lawyer that actually liked, the only trial lawyer that actually liked Bush, and he shoots him. Really? But hey, they could have picked Kamala Harris.
Right.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And speaking
Clarence
of
Thomas
Kamala
would have been
Harris,
a great Chief Justice, I think,
Yeah, I felt that he probably should have been in that position.
Right. Or Scalia was alive at the time as well.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Scalia, I think I always thought Scalia should have been the Chief Justice.
Scalia or Thomas, yeah.
Either one of those two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's crazy with the court there, and they won't touch anything controversial, which that's their purpose, is that when we have these disputes to decide the constitutionality of things, and
Right.
I don't know, it's there's no rails anymore. It seems like right now the left has control of both houses of the Congress and the White House, and they're going for it. They're unapologetically moving hardcore left, and I think they will pack the Supreme Court if they can.
Yeah.
Well, last I heard, and of course, I haven't paid real close attention to the last few days, but I thought that when they put it forward, Nancy Pelosi refused to put it forward. Has she reversed after AOC chewed her butt or something?
I'm not sure.
Because I heard that she was not going to bring it up.
Yeah. I think you're right.
And if Nancy doesn't bring it up, Speaker of the House, well, doesn't allow it to go to committee or whatever, then, it's dead in the water. It's what I heard, but, that could change. We got another 3 years of these knotheads in the White House, and hopefully by next year we'll clean out the Congress a little bit, get a little more cleaned out, and maybe a little bit of the Senate too.
We might be able to pick up one seat in the Senate, because Warnock is only going to serve 2 years of the last guy's term. So he comes up in 22, and there's talk that Herschel Walker maybe run against him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
Herschel would be great.
Now, getting back to court packing, they also have 2 Democrat senators that probably won't go with it, and that is Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Sinema. I forgot where she's from. I think is she?
I'm not sure where she's from. So they can
obviously she's from Hollywood. Said her name was Cinema, right? That's where all the movies are made, in Hollywood. So she must be from Hollywood.
Can they do this just with legislation? It doesn't have to be a constitutional amendment. In other words,
they can do it. It's not written in our Constitution.
Okay.
Right. Where's my copy here?
Cinema.
Well, let's hope that those 2 Democrats with level heads do, because that can, regardless of where you stand on that, the libs want what they want, but that can come back to bite them later on.
That's true.
Right? We've had 9 justices for how long now? Since the mid 1800s or so, whenever it was, they went to 9, and that seems to have served us, well so far. They're just pissed off that Trump got 3 people,
Yeah, they just want to.
Arizona.
Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they make a lot of movies out in Arizona. Old Tucson's known for.
Look at Albuquerque. They had Breaking Bad for all those years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Cinema could be from any of those states, but obviously Arizona. So, which I find ironic when you think about it, because for years Arizona had legalized prostitution. So
I thought that was Nevada.
They still have it, right?
Arizona and Nevada both have legalized prostitution.
Ooh, I did not
Arizona
know.
and California had legalized gambling. Nevada was in the
Oh.
center of the two. Yeah, no. Arizona had. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why do you think Barry
Did not know
Goldwater
that.
smiled so much?
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Him and his brother had a few business dealings involved in that particular line of work. His brother was the governor of Arizona at one time, and
That's right.
yeah, yeah, there was legalized prostitution in Arizona. A lot of people don't realize that.
No,
I never heard
I
of it.
did not know that either. So I learned something new. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, here in New York State, we're getting the legalized marijuana coming along now, and
Yeah, it sounds.
you know, I have mixed feelings about it, to tell you the truth. The war on drugs isn't all that successful, but it's going to be another thing where it'll be easier, just like beer now. Kids will be able to get marijuana, and I, I just have a feeling we're going the way of heading towards that, where like Colorado legalized it a few years ago, and I think you said Colorado's getting that kind of Portland, Oregon type of thinking is creeping into the state, and
Yes, it is.
obviously we're pretty blue here, but I just that if that grunge drug mentality creeps in to the state, I'm really thinking about what it would take to get out of here and get somewhere warmer and definitely more conservative.
Yeah,
Tennessee, Oklahoma.
yeah,
I'm
Texas.
thinking more like Alabama and South Carolina.
yeah,
Somewhere in the
yeah.
I like the East Coast.
I would recommend going sort of southeast part of the United States, because Oklahoma still has some pretty nasty weather, and unless you've experienced an ice storm, uh, if you have, you don't want to come to Oklahoma, because we do have our ice storms, and that's hard for people to wrap their mind around what an ice storm is. But man, when you see those power lines pulled down because they've got this much ice or more wrapped around the whole, you got this much ice just wrapped around it, and then the
why those
icicles
power lines snap.
Yeah, those power lines snap, the poles snap, yeah. And you go 10 days without electric, and in an all electric house, that's a bit of a problem.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, all right, guys, we managed to do an hour, so I want to thank you guys for coming in and helping me out, and boy. And I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming in.
That was fast.
We got up to 8, where last week I think we only got up to 4 or 5. So
it was Mike's smiling face.
Yeah.
Hello, Chris Wedgeworth and Joe Blaylock. And I know Steve was here earlier.
Steve is here. Who else? Brad Parr. Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Parr. Yeah.
Parr.
Yeah.
I never know how to pronounce half these.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's gonna, we're in crazy times right now politically, and with all the stuff's going on, and unfortunately, I got a bad feeling about how this summer's going to go in terms of riot season and all that stuff. I'd like to be optimistic, but I just
I'm like you guys. All right, let's shut this thing down, and thanks everybody in the chat, and you guys have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week. God bless America and the great state of Colorado, Oklahoma, and New York.
They need it more than anybody.
Right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.